A few years ago, when Hanukkah and Christmas coincided, I wrote a sermon based on a famous seasonal story. I was looking at it this week, and it feels even more relevant today. And so I wanted to share it with you in a slightly revised form. It goes like this. 'Twas the third night of Hanukkah, and all through the house not a creature was stirring except Dr. Kraus. His wife was sleeping, his kids were tucked in, but somehow sleep still evaded him. He thought of his therapist. It was too late to phone him. He considered his options, Ambien or melatonin. The candles burned out as he sat in his chair. The sweet smell of fried potato still lingered in the air. The Krauses' house was unique as far as the rest of their street goes, displaying a simple menorah in the window and no elaborate electric light shows. In the house to the left and the house to the right, they called that eve Christmas, not a Hanukkah night. In those neighboring houses, socks were for mantles, not floors, and for some bizarre reason, they brought their pine trees indoors. The kids were nestled and dreaming of toys, hoping a magic man deemed them good girls and boys. And their parents also rested from their budget spreadsheets, exhausted from months of making ends meet. But Dr. Kraus was wide awake, with neither excitement nor glee. This season, this world, he just could not let it be. There was darkness he feared wherever he looked. The world was a mess, and his energy was cooked. There was a politics of hate, of anger and fear that made Dr. Kraus worried for the people he held dear. There was violence and vitriol abroad and at home that turned Kraus's kishkas and made him feel so alone. In Gaza, there was war and suffering on a scale hard to imagine, and there were anti-Semitic attacks in Israel, Europe, and Manhattan. Kraus felt hopeless. He didn't know what to do. Never in his whole life had he been scared to be a Jew. Now, as his kids placed in the window a menorah for the world to see, Kraus thought with sorrow about his current reality. Was it safer, he wondered, to keep the candles on the inside? He didn't want to attract attention, though he also didn't want to hide. And his neighbors, it seemed, didn't share in his fear. They weren't anxious, he thought. They were full of good cheer. Their houses twinkled with unabashed holiday displays. Their jingling bells betrayed no sorrows or dismays. As he left work that afternoon, his heart was sinking. He wanted to shake his coworkers and ask, "What are you thinking?" His colleagues had wished him Merry Christmas instead, but it was hard to be merry with these thoughts running through his head. Now Kraus was sitting late at night in his jammies, wondering if his family just needed a vacation to Miami. When suddenly something shook him from his stupor. A thud on the roof like a wayward paratrooper. There was crunching and cursing, though there was no snow, and Kraus could have sworn he heard a faint, "No, no, no." Their chimney was tiny and their fireplace rarely used, so the visitor slid down the drain pipe while most of the Krauses snoozed. The doctor was too scared to move, too baffled to talk, until at the door he heard a quiet, gentle knock. Kraus peeked through the hall, and there stood at his door a figure as tall as one man and as wide as 3 or 4. He opened the door and took in the sight of the man standing there in the midnight porch light, bespectacled and bebearded, with a cone-shaped hat on his head, and wouldn't you know it, he was all dressed in red. Kraus stuttered and stammered. He could not think quick. They don't teach you in Hebrew school what to say when you meet St. Nick. It was his guest who spoke first. He said, "Please forgive my intrusion. I'm sure my appearance may cause some confusion. I know I don't appear to be one of your tribe. At least the menorah in the window gave me that vibe. I'm looking for the O'Connors. Is this not their house?" "That's 414, this is 416, replied a befuddled Dr. Kraus. "I had a feeling," said Nick. As he glanced towards the chair, he gave an infectious, jolly smile and ran his fingers through his white beard hair. I am stuck here, it seems, for a little while, alas. I've called AAA, my flying motorcycle's out of gas. Motorcycle? Asked Dr. Krauss. You use AAA? Didn't there used to be a reindeer that pulled some kind of sleigh? Nicholas laughed with a kind ho, ho, ho. I've upgraded since then. Also, PETA said that the reindeer had to go. Now, he said, beaming with pride, I have a slightly more practical and way cooler ride. But I never had to think about gas when I flew in the sleigh. If I can just sit for a moment, then I'll be on my way. Krauss hesitated, unsure what to do. The Torah teaches that hospitality is incumbent on every Jew, but Krauss wasn't running some kind of modern-day manger. Shouldn't hospitality give way to a healthy fear of stranger danger? The etiquette of this situation the rabbis might have debated, but Krauss invited in Father Christmas to come inside while he waited. He gestured towards the chair. Old Nick sighed with exhaustion and joy. Then he gently lowered his giant body into the straining lazy boy. I haven't any cookies, apologized Dr. Krauss, but if you'd like some latkes, I could wake my spouse. Just something to drink is fine, though I'm so sick of milk. I wouldn't refuse a brandy or something of that ilk. As Krauss fetched the liquor, his guest surveyed the scene. It had been quite a while since he'd seen decor that wasn't red and green. So tell me, my new friend, what keeps you awake? You have no presents to hide or Christmas hams to bake. Krauss sat down in the other chair across from the jolly old man. He didn't know where to start, but after a moment, he began. I was watching the candles as the last one flickered out. The darkness seemed so heavy then with loneliness and doubt. I fear the world has come unmoored, that we're all a bit adrift. To be honest, I was thinking that a little Christmas might give my spirits a lift. Would you entertain a question from a tired, humble Jew? How do you stay so happy with all the work there is to do? As many presents as you bring, as many smiles as you make, tomorrow you'll go back north to start all over. It seems a lot to take. Do you ever get discouraged with the world's most ugly bits? Do you ever want to hang up the sack and tell everyone you've called it quits? Santa didn't rush to answer or chortle, ho, ho, ho. He just sat and sniffed his brandy, then he drank it in one go. Hanukkah always struck me as strange, he said with the smallest grin. We celebrate the birth of God. You celebrate a military win. Christmas is a time of joy and cheer because redemption is soon at hand, but Hanukkah is a remembrance of heroes who fought to liberate their land. And what is your symbol for the victory of your Maccabean camp? Not a stone or a shield or a sword, but a many-candled lamp. It seems to me that your holiday is the story of the fight, but also a reminder that in the end, it's our job to be the light. The miracle of Hanukkah is not that the oil lasted more than one day. The miracle is that they had just a tiny bit, and they lit it anyway. What I admire about the Jews you see is not the ways you cope. It's that Judaism at its very core is the consistent expression of hope. On the first night, you light only one candle, a brave act for the darkest day, and maybe that's all you can handle. But soon you can see that one candle brings more, first 2, then 3, and tomorrow there'll be 4. For when we bring light, we are never alone. When one wick lights another, somehow each flame has grown. Your neighbors are cheery as they pray for their Savior, but you, sir, have hope. And that changes your behavior. That is the beauty of this Hanukkah and the reason that I decided to come see ya. Take a little advice from this old elf. You don't have to light the whole world by yourself, but light just one small candle, though it feels small and weak, and pay attention to how that light grows over the course of just 1 week. The menorah's message is much deeper than merriness or good cheer. It's a reminder that when we find darkness, we can choose hope instead of fear. Come, Dr. Krauss, let us relight your menorah. It will be our little party, though I'm in no shape to hora. Then he reached into his sack and he rummaged around until 4 new candles and 2 well-worn kippot were found. Then Krauss in his PJs and Nick in his festive dressing lit the Hanukkah lights and together recited the blessings. I'm glad that I parked here, Santa said with a smile. Doing that reminds me of my childhood. I haven't done it in a while. Krauss was dumbfounded and tried to think of what to say, but Santa had started to get up to go greet the AAA. He was about to leave the house, but before he passed through the door, old Kris Kringle turned around to address Dr. Krauss once more. I don't have presents for this house, but it's not because you're a Jew. I didn't bring you anything because to me, the present is you. Don't give up on the light or jump off the tight wire. You'd be amazed at how contagious is your fire. We need you out there to be a bearer of light. It's not the joyful, but the hopeful who bring an end to the night. With a nod and a wink, he was gone just as quick as he came. Krauss was amazed how nimbly he ascended the storm drain. Then Krauss went back in the house and climbed into his bed with new hopeful thoughts rekindled in his head. Krauss now understood how to respond to the darkness. Who knew it would take a visit from Santa to spark this? Hanukkah's not about an end to all famine, hatred, or war. It's about how we find a little light and resolve to make more. He was still not relaxed. You could not call him cheery, but he felt less alone and a little less weary. And now he could rest, knowing there's always more work to do, but never giving up hope is what it means to be a Jew. And as he drifted to sleep, he thought he heard the motorcycle take off and a jolly old voice saying, Happy Hanukkah, and to all, Chag Sameach.